Triad Wars is a free-to-play asynchronous MMO currently in closed beta from Square Enix and United Front Games. Taking place in the same universe as open-world hit Sleeping Dogs, Triad Wars blends a lot of RPG elements with city management and other forms of progression to create a unique blend of genres. You play a member of the Chinese Triad working and killing your way through the ranks of China's underbelly, raiding other players' bases, and building up your own. But is it all any good? Now, asynchronous MMO is a funny term. It's something that United Front and Square Enix came up with. What it means, before you get excited about a fully multiplayer Sleeping Dogs, is that you'll play Triad Wars completely solo, but you'll be competing with and against other players. In entirely most honest fashion I possibly could, it has more in common with regular open-world RPGs than any real MMO. Though you're playing on the servers at the same time with thousands of others, you'll never really see anyone else, except for like a portrait over their base. The multiplayer aspect is more like Clash of Clans than any other MMO you might have played. You build a base, you attack others' bases, and you join clans to go on larger scale wars. So basically, Triad Wars is the perfect MMO if you really don't want to deal with or play with anybody else in any meaningful way. It's not bad. In fact, the gameplay can be very fun, and it is very polished really, really well at this stage. But calling it an MMO is a bit of a stretch. In a time when I spend a lot of my days ruminating on what an MMO really is, a game where you don't really play alongside any other players, that's not an MMO. But Triad Wars is fun. The biggest problems I see with the game at this stage of closed beta are two main issues. There are no female playable characters, though United Front says that they will likely be added, and the amount of actual content is pretty paltry from what I can tell so far. It makes Triad Wars a perfect game for 15 to 30 minute play sessions, but maybe not much more than that. Gameplay will be immediately familiar to Sleeping Dogs fans. The actual action of the game is a mix of melee combat and third-person shooting, with character progression centered on the several skill trees, melee, range, and so on. You have full customization of your looks as well, though this beta has been mainly about selecting a preset character and changing his looks through earnable and purchasable costume pieces. In between raids on opposing bases, you'll be maintaining and protecting your own territory by upgrading it, collecting money from various fronts, recruiting NPCs to work for you, and so forth. While managing the base, you're given an overhead view of what buildings you have available, and you can upgrade, tweak, placement, and order your peons to do stuff and make you money, by running illegal gambling rings, shady import operations, exports, and so forth. You also have to evade the law if they catch up to you or no good, and while working your way up the ranks of the Triad. There's a brief storyline that serves as the tutorial with your uncle, but eventually the game just sets you on your own to let you rove about and raid other people's bases. The problem I've seen so far is that the content is repetitive. Bases look a lot alike, and there's little variation stylistically. It would have been nice if players could decorate these places to make them their own, and would serve nicely for the free-to-play monetization, I'm sure, but as of now you're stuck with default options. All you choose is from a limited amount of locations to place your certain little fronts here and there. Think WoW's garrisons and you've got a good idea. Now, Triad Wars is a free-to-play PC game, which means they have to get your money somehow. There is, of course, a cash shop, and frankly, it could be pay to win depending on who you ask. There are little packets of cards that give you buffs and temporary weapons and things like that, but they're all based on random number generators, so you don't know what you're paying for. You could get nothing in the card pack. There's no direct PvP in Triad Wars, but you are competing against rival clans and rival players, so if you're buying these buffs, conceivably you're buying an upper hand. Now, what I will say are these cards and these buffs and these extra things can be found in the game, and you can earn the gold, which is the currency for the cash shop, by just playing the game as well. So they make sure that you have an option not to spend a dime, but it's easy to tell that they're hoping they're going to be players that just want the upper hand quicker and buy these things. So we'll have to see how it plays out as the beta progresses. There are also a bunch of cosmetic items, like different car skins, vehicle skins, clothing items, and things like that that have no effect on the gameplay whatsoever, and those are totally cool if you ask me. Now, I've only been able to put in a few hours so far, and my biggest reservations about Triad Wars are its amount of content and its lack of female player characters. No matter who you're asking in the world, there are people that like to play females, whether they're actually female or if they're male gamers. They want to play female characters. It just seems silly that they're not in here, although I get that maybe the Chinese Triad doesn't have a lot of women running around in it, who knows. So, now the MMO term. I get it is multiplayer, and there are thousands of players, and you are online, but there's no real shared game space. Asynchronous, the word, helps clear it up, but a lot of players are going to try this thinking there are going to be other players with them, people to play with, and there just aren't. That doesn't make it a bad game. In fact, it's every bit as fun as Sleeping Dogs, with the added bonuses of more player ownership of your base and character and customization. Now, if UFG adds some sort of co-op missions or raids, something to do with people, they'll really be in business, I think. The game itself is very polished and fun, even if it's light on things to do right now. Triad Wars may not hold you for hours at a time, but instead it's kind of the perfect game for a light session here or there when you don't have a lot of time to kill. And frankly, that's not a bad thing to have in this genre. We all love our deep MMOs and RPGs, but sometimes it's nice to get the feeling of an open world game without having to spend 2 or 3 hours to feel like you're making any progress. If you want to take a look at Triad Wars yourself, you can grab one of the beta keys we have on the site. They're good for the entire closed beta, so grab one now. And you can stay tuned later today and later this week as our stream team takes to the streets and beats up some rival gangs too. Thanks for listening. I'm Bill Murphy with MMORPG.com. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook at MMORPG.com without the dot.